Before everything changed, she was leading a double life. Her name was Leila, a 29-year-old marketing manager at a prominent firm. During the day, she spent her time handling clients and creating advertising campaigns. Her work life was organized, professional, and demanding. But once the sun set, Leila indulged in a secret side of herself that she kept far away from her husband, Omar, who was 35 and worked as a software engineer. Leila's interests outside of work revolved around dancing, socializing, and going out to nightclubs with her best friend, Nadia. She would often lie to Omar, telling him that she was spending time with Nadia, when in fact, she would be dancing the night away with a friend she met at a club. A man named Tariq, 31, who was charming, adventurous, and exciting in a way her life wasn't. Leila and Tariq had been seeing each other secretly for about a year. They would dance together, share drinks, and even kiss when the atmosphere grew intense. She found herself unable to resist the excitement, the adrenaline rush that came from living on the edge of discovery. Yet, she always reassured herself that no one knew that her double life was safely concealed. One fateful evening, as Leila was dancing closely with Tariq at the club, a young man was recording himself for a social media post nearby. Leila didn't notice him, nor did she realize that she was inadvertently captured in the background of the video. It wasn't until a few days later that the video went viral, showing Leila dancing passionately with Tariq and kissing him. Omar saw the video. She came home from work one day to find him sitting in the living room, his face grim, holding his phone in his hand. As she walked through the door, he looked up and said in a low, cold voice, "We need to talk." Leila froze. Her heart started pounding in her chest. She could feel the air around her grow heavier as she approached the living room. Omar held up his phone, playing the video clip for her to see. "I can't believe what I'm seeing, Leila. Leila? Is this really you? You've been lying to me for a whole year?" he demanded, his voice filled with a mix of disbelief and anger. She took a step back, her voice trembling as she tried to find the words. "Omar, it's not what you think," she stammered, but he cut her off. "Not what I think. You're dancing and kissing another man. You've been deceiving me while I trusted you. You said you were with Nadia," he shouted, his voice raising with each word. Leila's eyes filled with tears as she began to panic. "Omar, I'm so sorry. It was just dancing. It didn't mean anything. Please, I can explain." She begged, her voice breaking, but Omar was far from willing to forgive her. He took a deep breath, his expression cold and distant. "You've left me with no choice, Leila. I'm going to divorce you," he said, pausing before adding, unless she looked at him, her tear-streaked face filled with desperation. "Unless what?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Unless you agree to shave your head like an old man," Omar said, his tone stern and unyielding. "Not just a short haircut, I'm talking about completely shaving your head and living with the consequences. And it won't end there. You'll sign a contract agreeing that you'll never grow your hair back. You will maintain the look for life." Leila gasped, her hand instinctively reaching for her long, dark hair that she had always been proud of. "No, Omar, please. Anything but that. I can't."
"You will do it, or we're done."
"And not only that, you're quitting your job. You'll stay at home. No more social life. No more clubbing. No more Tariq. If you want this marriage to continue, you will shave your head and live as I decide," he declared, leaving no room for negotiation. Omar's ultimatum echoed in Leila's mind as he delivered the final blow. "You have 24 hours to make your decision. You'll go to this barber shop," he said, handing her a slip of paper with the name and address of the place. "I've already set up an appointment for tomorrow. They know exactly what to do. You'll sign a contract there, agreeing to come twice a month and keep your head shaved like an old man. The barber won't show any mercy," he added, his tone unyielding. Leila felt a cold shiver run down her spine as she took the paper from his hand. She didn't even know where to start with her emotions. Anger, fear, shame, and regret all swirled together. As Omar left the room, she collapsed onto the couch, her mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. It wasn't just about the haircut. It was about losing her autonomy, her job, and essentially her entire life as she knew it. That night, Leila hardly slept. She couldn't stop thinking about the barbershop and the humiliation that awaited her. The next morning, she went through her usual routine in a daze. She stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, trying to grasp the reality of what was about to happen. Her long, dark hair, which had always been a source of pride, would soon be gone, and with it, a part of her identity. Reluctantly, she arrived at the barber shop that afternoon. It was a small, no-nonsense establishment tucked away in a quiet street. The sign outside read, Old Town Barber. Taking a deep breath, Leila pushed open the door and stepped inside. The sound of a bell jingled above her as she entered. The interior was simple, with an old-fashioned barber chair in the center and a large mirror on the wall. The air smelled faintly of shaving cream and aftershave. Behind the chair stood the barber, a stern-looking man in his mid-40s, with a neatly trimmed beard and a no-nonsense demeanor. He glanced up as Leila walked in, his expression unreadable. "You must be Leila," he said in a gruff voice, gesturing to the chair. "Your husband called. He's given me very specific instructions." Leila swallowed hard, feeling a knot form in her stomach. Yes, I'm here for my appointment," she replied, her voice barely audible. The barber nodded, as though he had heard it all before. "Take a seat," he said curtly. "We'll get started right away." As Leila settled into the chair, the barber fastened a cape around her neck and began to prepare the tools. She felt trapped. As though there was no escape from what was about to happen, her hands gripped the armrest tightly, and she could feel her heart pounding in her chest. "Your husband mentioned a contract," the barber said, picking up a clipboard from a small table beside the chair. "You'll need to sign this. It states that you agree to come in twice a month to keep your hair shaved down to the skin. No exceptions." Leila took the clipboard with trembling hands, her eyes scanning over the document. She couldn't believe she was actually about to sign away her freedom like this, but the thought of divorce and the scandal it would bring felt even more terrifying than the haircut itself. With a deep breath, she signed her name at the bottom of the page. The barber took the clipboard back and set it aside. "All right then," he said, his voice firm. "Let's get started." He switched on the clippers, and the buzzing sound filled the room. It felt like the noise reverberated inside her head, drowning out all her thoughts. She closed her eyes as the barber placed the clippers at her forehead. Just above her hairline, without any hesitation, he began to run them straight down the middle, leaving a strip of bare scalp in their wake. Leila's heart sank as she felt the clippers make their way across her head, the vibration rattling against her skull. She could feel each pass of the blades, leaving behind nothing but smooth, exposed skin. The locks of her hair fell to the floor in thick, dark piles, and she couldn't help but feel a sense of loss with each tuft that landed on the ground. The barber showed no mercy as Omar had promised. He worked quickly and efficiently, covering her head in shaving cream once the clippers had done their job. With a straight razor in hand, he began to scrape away the remaining stubble, leaving her scalp shiny and smooth. The coolness of the blade against her skin sent shivers down her spine. When he finally stepped back, Leila opened her eyes and looked in the mirror. The reflection staring back at her was unrecognizable. Her head was completely bald, gleaming under the shop's fluorescent lights. She looked like a different person, stripped of her beauty, femininity, and the confidence her hair once gave her. The barber handed her a mirror to inspect his work. "Your husband was very clear about the instructions," he said, his tone still as stern as when she first walked in. "You'll come back in 2 weeks for the next shave. Make sure you don't miss it." Leila nodded, her fingers gingerly touching her smooth scalp as she took in the drastic transformation. She could hardly believe it was real, but the reality sank in fully when she stepped out of the barber shop and felt the chill of the afternoon breeze against her bare scalp. She pulled her scarf over her head as she walked home, feeling a mix of shame and humiliation. When she arrived home, Omar was waiting for her in the living room. He looked her over, his expression a mix of satisfaction and control. "Good," he said, approaching her and running his hand over her freshly shaved scalp. "This is how you will look from now on. I hope you understand what's expected of you." Leila swallowed, holding back the tears that threatened to spill over. "I understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible.